Hi everybody. Today we're going to be working on this image here, which as you can see I've already started. I've already been working on this one a little bit. And this picture is from Mythographic Magical Earth by Joseph Catimbang. This is the one I've chosen to work on here. And I started off, as you can see there, working fairly realistically, keeping these butterflies to my usual kind of monarch butterfly that I like to colour. And I've been colouring those with the Ohuhu water-based markers, just these markers here, a couple of shades of orange, a grey and a black. That's all I've done with those, and then shaded with some Prismacolor pencils. But up till now, I really haven't had much of a clue what I'm going to do with the background, because that's the way I usually work. I have one main idea for my picture, which for this one was the butterflies, and then I see how things develop and how it goes along. And lately, I've been seeing lots of colouring in the style of Lisa Frank. You might be able to see where this is going. I've been seeing lots of colouring in the style of Lisa Frank, the 80s, very colourful, lots of rainbows kind of style. And I really love that style. And because I've been seeing all this coming through on my Facebook and Instagram kind of feeds, I've really been itching to have a go at that myself. And I thought, well, what if I brought that style into this picture, the one that I'm actually working on at the moment? So I had a look at Lisa Frank's website, and I found this little guy called Hunter, who is a leopard. He's kind of a rainbow leopard, and I thought, well, that would fit in quite nicely if I did this leopard in my background here in the rainbow pink, purple, orange and yellow in the kind of Lisa Frank style. I should be able to make that work, as my butterflies are already orange there. Maybe bring in some more rainbow colours for these flowers. I haven't actually finished working on my butterflies yet, but I figured on camera I could maybe try the Lisa Frank style for the rest of the picture, finish it off and then show you the finished product if this idea actually works. But I thought, yeah, if the idea did work, then maybe you guys would like to see how I actually went ahead with it. So I'll zoom us in and we'll get started with today's colouring session, and fingers crossed that this idea actually works. So here we are zoomed in on my leopard there. And I don't think I'll be able to show you the actual picture of the little guy I am basing him on because of copyright issues and all that kind of stuff. But if you do Google Hunter Lisa Frank, then you will come up with a picture of him and you'll get a good idea of what I'm actually aiming for here. And I've picked a few markers that are the base colours that I can see on Lisa Frank's image that I think I'll be able to work with here. Most of them are my Ohuhu markers, but for the yellow, I picked out one from my TouchCool markers because my yellows are starting to run out in the Ohuhu markers. I didn't have many to choose from and not the right kind of shades, so I'll be going for this kind of bright yellow here. I've picked out R15, which is cerise. I have Y10, which is apricot. I have P3 pastel violet, and the TouchCool marker, that is 35 lemon yellow, which is a really nice bright yellow that I want to be using for this little guy. I have actually tested the markers out, so this is the colour palette here we'll be working with. Originally, the marker that I tested for the purple was the lavender from the Ohuhu markers, and I was thinking, well, as I want to be blending the purple into the pink, that one might be a little bit dark. I might be able to bring it in for some shadows maybe, but for the blending I've gone for the lighter purple. And these are how all the colours kind of line up. You can see there that is a very kind of Lisa Frank style colour palette I've got going on there, and I'm thinking that that will work with the actual butterflies I've already coloured. The background I haven't actually puzzled out yet. I'm hoping to be able to bring in some little star stickers in some bright colours and see if I can make that fit into the background. But I'm really going to have some fun with this, I think, and just go for the total unnatural colours. So I'll pop my paper back in behind there. So I'm a little bit nervous here. I'm not exactly sure how these colours are going to work with this picture. I'm hoping they do work with it. I'm going to start with his head, I think. Dive right in here, and I'm looking at the picture of little Hunter here, and the places where the yellow seems to come in is the top of his nose here. There is some white being left around his muzzle, down his tummy, as with the leopards in real life. They do have that kind of going on, and we do have some yellow over his eye. I don't think this is a very realistically kind of drawn leopard in the first place, as we do have the spots carrying right the way down on the tummy, on the legs. So I think it's just a vaguely leopard looking creature we're aiming for here, but in the style of Lisa Frank for a bit of fun today. There were a couple of pictures I did pick out. Maybe I could just do completely in Lisa Frank style, but then I thought, why not just bring it in on the picture I'm actually working on and get that working with my monarch butterflies. And I think we're going to end up with something really super cool at the end. Those are the kind of places we have the yellow coming in. We do have some pink as well. So this one again, R15, the cerise. We do have some pink as well. And that's mainly, let me see, top of his head here. This is a really bright pink when you first lay it down, but it does dry a little bit darker. And we have some pink on the cheeks. And the pink will come in further down his back and places like that. And we have it for a little bit of shadow on the legs, on his paws, on the picture I'm looking at. So whereabout would the shadows be? Shadows would be around here, I'm thinking. Put that in like that. Maybe let's back up this one a little bit. And I'm guessing here where this the leopard kind of blends into the sort of flowy shapes, that's where his tummy will be coming in here. So that's where our white will be coming in. And our shadows with this purple and pink around the edges there. And as for the rest of him, this is where we bring in the orange. So I'm going in with the apricot now. And there is supposed to be some white around his eyes. I seem to have forgotten that, but we'll forge ahead anyways. As usual, we're being inspired. We're not completely copying. Maybe we'll leave that white there around the front of his face. Have this orange come down almost to his muzzle. This orange is drawing slightly darker than I would maybe want that to. But we want to have the whites coming in around his tummy there. And the orange comes most of the way down his neck here. I am trying to be pretty careful with how I'm laying these markers down, but I am not the neatest at the best of times, and there will be tidying up involved towards the end, most likely. And we have that, that orange blending into the pink. I'm not sure exactly how well I'm going to be able to make this blend, but a few layers we might be able to get something going here. We can come in and shade with pencils, there's nothing against that. And yeah, we can see that already that we are working quite nicely with the orange butterflies that we've already got going on there. The orange does come down his paws. Maybe if we try and blend into the yellow a little bit on the tummy area. We can make that work as we already have that little bit of yellow there we had down. So we'll go into the orange there, blend that into the yellow maybe. Just wet that edge a little bit. And bring in some yellow. I keep uncapping the wrong end. The fine end would be a little bit easier there, but if we blend that into the yellow, you know, leading into the white a little bit easier, I think. That will be giving us the effect that we're going for. Okay. Adding a little bit more pink there. And we can see the pink is drawing slightly darker there. It's not quite the fluorescent pink that we have when we first lay it down. Yes, I'm liking how this is turning out. This is, here we are, I've uncapped the right end, yay! This is turning out, yeah, a lot better than I kind of feared it would. I feared it would look really terrible with those orange butterflies I've already put them down. But I did tone down, the colours of the markers I picked were slightly darker, slightly more desaturated than the actual Lisa Frank colours that we have. I think we need to add a little bit of orange here on this paw. although in real life this would probably be a paler colour as we are inside his leg there. Maybe we can bring in the yellow. We don't have to work exactly to the picture. We can bring in the yellow, have that bleeding further down his leg. So I'm bringing in this purple here, mainly towards this back end where the leopard is kind of fading off into the sky. I want to bring in this purple a little bit here and have that blending into the pink sort of around his mid tummy area here, because on the picture I'm looking at, this little leopard cub, his paws are kind of a purple and a pink, his back paws, so I'll try and have this purple blending into the pink. Which in turn blend into the white. There we go, got something going on there. I'm thinking maybe working on his spots and markings a little bit. Get more of the typical Lisa Frank kind of leopard print going on. This guy is not technically a leopard. We can see he's not exactly a typical leopard, but I think we can take a little bit of liberties here. He's kind of a fantasy creature. I'm going to bring maybe the yellow in along the edge of the tummy again, and it is crossing over into the pink to give a nice bright orange. So, ooh, that's a bonus. Maybe we can bring that in along that edge there. That's working quite nicely. I never thought to overlay the markers, but yeah, that is giving us quite a nice bright orange there. Nice. I'm going to bring in the purple a little bit more here, I think, so it's not just concentrated in that one spot at the end of his legs there. Maybe down here as well. Maybe bring a bit more of that pink in, so we can overlay that over the orange and blend it a little bit more. That's working really well. What I think will work really well as well is to bring in a very light blue, maybe around the edges of these bright white areas that we want to have going on. So I'll find a nice bright blue there, and I'll maybe get out that lavender colour, the original, the darker purple here, that I think we might be able to use for his markings in some places, and the shadows. This is the blue I've dug out. This is a frost blue here. This is called Frost Blue B030. I'm going to bring this in for some shadows on the white areas that we have going on. Maybe on these bits where we are fading off into the sky. Yeah, I'm really loving this so far. I do love the style of Lisa Frank. It was very big during the 80s, which is kind of my era where I was growing up. So I do love this kind of style. And seeing it all over Facebook at the moment, especially in the kind of cute and cozy colouring books that are pretty popular at the moment. People tend to use this style quite a lot. It really made me want to try and use it on one of my pictures. So, yep, I went for it, and pretty happy with how this is going. His ears, maybe we'll bring in that blue. Yep, we do have the back of his ear there that we could bring in the orange. And this is the lavender. This one is P4, the lavender from the Ohuhu markers. Thought maybe we could bring this in for some shadows here where we are blending off into the sky, maybe. And for his markings, if we try and blend those in a little bit more. Maybe using this lighter purple as we come into the pink there. This lighter purple is called Pastel Violet. Yeah, that's giving us the right kind of feeling, I think. Not sure we really need to bring in any darker colours there. Maybe I'll work with him as he is for now, fill in the background and see where we end up there. I might come back in with pencils for shading if I'm thinking that we're needing it, as this picture is getting more closer to being finished. But this purple is working quite nicely for his markings over the top of those markers there, I'm thinking. We could try bringing in a darker colour to give a more kind of typical leopard mark. Once I've finished doing all these in the purple, I will maybe try that and see in a little area maybe to see if we do really need that. Oh, I like that coming down into the white. That's really nice and bright there. I was expecting this part of the picture, doing the actual leopard, to take absolutely ages, as I was working with my water-based markers and the pencils for the butterflies and keep trying to go for something realistic. I was expecting to put in all the fur and all that kind of stuff, but then this idea kind of popped into my head from what I was seeing online, and yeah, we're running with that now. We have a Lisa Frank style leopard that I am really happy with at the moment. What colour eyes have you got, little one? He's got really bright green eyes. Here we have GY5, which is sugarcane, and I'll just fill in his eyes there, because the little guy in my picture does have the bright green eyes. I'll pick out a little bit more of a shadow here with the lavender. Blend that in with the paler purple a little bit. Okay, do we need any of these extra kind of leopard print bits? Yep, I think that's adding something, so we're going to carry on adding a few little blobs here around the edges of these markings. There's a few too many, I think, for actual leopard skin, but maybe we can ease off on it and let these down his leg just be the plain little spots. And these are being pretty random, just little spots, larger, smaller ones around the edges of these darker spot markings that our leopard does have. And I think we will, yeah, we'll ease off as we get down towards the bottom here, where his tummy fur will be coming in. With the white there, we can ease off on that a little bit. No set pattern. Yeah, just being a bit random here. This whole thing is just for the fun of it. We'll give him a little bit of darker shadow in his ear there as well with our darker purple. This lavender colour. Yeah, I really like how that's going actually. I still don't have much of a clue how I'm going to be painting the rest of the background, or colouring it in even, the rest of the background. But I'm thinking with these flowers here, we do have some flowers and leaves and stuff going on. We could use the same kind of Lisa Frank style colours. Maybe pick out a couple of shades of green there for the leaves, really, really bright greens. The picture I'm looking at has a flower with orange, yellow and pink blending together. One with purple, blue and pink blending together. And one with yellow and orange. Kind of a yellow flower with orange in the middle. So maybe we can work with I'm thinking the blue and purple ones would work quite well. So I'll pick out a blue and a purple that I think I might be able to work with here. Maybe a little bit darker than that frost blue we've already got. And maybe we can use that lavender colour we were using for our darker shade. I'll have a look and see what different colours I can pick out for those. Okay, I've picked out a few colour combinations I can maybe use for the flowers. As we're looking at it here, there does seem to be 3 different kinds of flowers. There's these big kind of trumpet style ones here, We have these little ones here, and then we have these kind of multi-layered sort of peony ones here. So we do have 3 different colour combinations I have picked out there that hopefully I can make work for those flowers, and it will all work well together once we get those really bright greens in there. I do have a sort of plan for formulating at the moment. So for the flowers, I've picked out a light pink and a dark pink here. This is RP6 Vivid Pink and R22 Dark Blush. I'm hoping those will work quite well together. I have a slightly less vivid orange and yellow than what we've used on the actual leopard. I have a slightly less saturated version. This is Y4 Quince and Y3 Barium Yellow that I might be able to use. And some really pretty flowers on this picture I'm looking at here have a purple and a blue with a little bit of pink for the actual centres of the flowers, which I think would work for these ones here because we do have some rather deep centres in these flowers. The other ones are mostly the petals. I'll be able to bring in yellow for the centres of these little ones here, if you can see those. Yeah, I'll be able to bring in yellow for the centres of those ones there, and then just work with the petals. But these ones here I thought could work with this 3 colour combination, and the 3 colours that I've picked out are the lavender that we actually used on our leopard. We have RP1 Vivid Reddish Purple, which is a more of a purpley pink, and then we have the pastel blue, which is a slightly darker blue than we've used with this frost blue here. So I'm going to start with those maybe and see if we can get that colour combination working, fingers crossed, and then move on from there. So the ones I'm looking at does have the pink in the centre of the flower as a sort of the stamens in the centre of the flower. So let's get into the middle of the screen and see if we can make this work. So this part in the middle I would be doing with the reddish pink, I think that one was called. I'll just try on a couple of flowers and see if I can actually make that work. And the purple is in the middle of the flower like this. Maybe we'll need to bring in our lighter purple again, but it depends how well this one will blend into our blue. And then the outer edges were this bright blue. Yeah, that's not blending amazingly well, so I might bring in that lighter purple and pastel violet that we were using and blend that more out into the blue. Yeah, that's a lot better. Just bringing in that pastel purple. The blue is still damp, which I think is helping there. I'm just blending those colours. Yeah, I like that. I like that. So we're going to go with that. I'll try and do these the same way I actually did that one. So we'll do the purple, then the blue, and then come in with the lighter purple. There will be a lot of white gel pen on this one, I'm thinking. Lisa Frank was big on putting our sparkles and kind of glittery looking bits. So I'll probably bring in the gel pen for lots of sparkle on this one. Petal folding over, that's a petal folding over, I think. And the light purple, just so it looks the same as the flower that we have here. Normally I would do that purple, light purple, then blue, but as we are trying to work the same as what we actually have there, I have to do things in the same kind of way. And yeah, that's looking okay to me. So we'll work that way for the rest of these flowers here. Those are looking pretty good so far. I think I'm pretty pleased with those. So we'll move on to these other kind of flowers down here. And I was thinking for these kind of peony style ones here, there only seem to be a few of those, if we can see all those on the camera. Yeah, these ones here. I was thinking for those to bring in a pink. That's the colour I most associate with those kind of flowers. So for those, I picked up the deep blush and the vivid pink, but I'm thinking because we have got the three colours going on with our blue flowers up here, maybe I could bring in some yellow, maybe in the centres, and see how well that works. I don't want to be quite as saturated as this yellow we have going on our leopard, because I want him to stand out a bit, even though everything else is going to be quite vividly coloured. I want him to stand out. So I picked out the barium yellow here that I'm going to be using on these little kind of blossom type flowers here. And I'm just going to use that in the middles of these flowers, and then try and blend out into the pink and maybe give a kind of peachy tone. I don't know if this is going to work, but we will see how this is going to work. I'm hoping it will blend into this lighter pink colour and give us a more of a peachy colour, maybe, and then lead out into this darker pink. Maybe a little bit of jigging here is needed to get the effect I'm really after. If we bring that yellow up a little bit further on top of the pink, I think that is what I was looking for. So what I'm going to have to do is go in with the pink and then go over the top of that light pink with the yellow, I'm thinking. Keeping the darker pink for the very edges. There we go, something along those lines. To get these nice bright pink flowers down in the corner here. Maybe just the yellow and the lighter pink on these very tiny petals in the middle. That one can just be pink. So there doesn't really seem to be a lot of room for bringing in the darker pink there. We can still try and blend a little bit. That's maybe not working quite as well as I would have hoped there, but once we get in the green, I think the flowers will look separate from the leopard. I'm kind of worried they're blending into the leopard a little bit too much, but once the green is on, I'm sure we'll be able to sort that out. So all the rest of these kind of peony looking flowers I'm going to do in this colour combination. Make sure that centre there is yellow. There's all our big flowers done down in that corner, and like I said, that should be looking a lot better once we've got the green in to separate from our actual leopard. We can always use the old tried and trusted white outline if nothing, if all else fails. That is something that we can do. I think I've missed out a petal here behind our butterfly, so I'll just pop that in quickly. So for these little flowers around the edges here, what I picked out for those was a slightly less saturated yellow and orange, which I think I might be able to work. We might bring in the brightest yellow, the yellow that we used on our leopard here, just for the centres. If we have many of those visible, just a couple. We have a couple of those visible. And for the petals, I was thinking maybe we could bring in a yellow and an orange. We don't have many of these little flowers up here, so we'll move to the ones down here. I think that's about all we have. And then a lot of greenery to be filling in and some really nice bright greens. We do have a tree branch here as well, so we'll have to work on that. And the picture I was looking at of the little hunter leopard guy, he was sitting on a tree branch that was actually blue, so I'm thinking maybe we can do that tree branch blue to carry on the blue of the flowers there and bring that around the front of the leopard to carry on that blue colour and look a little bit different from the greens that we're going to be using for the leaves, and still keep in with the kind of Lisa Frank style that we're going for. Do we have any other flowers? Oh, we have one there. It's a pretty complicated picture, this one. It is kind of hard to see where all the bits go, but once you actually get in and you colour, pick out all the butterflies, colour those. We've picked out the leopard, now we're picking out the flowers. Once all the different bits are picked out and coloured, it makes things a lot easier, I think. Do we actually have... I think we do actually have another pink flower here. That one there is one of the pink flowers, one of these pink flowers, so we'll pop that one in. And then I think we're pretty much done with the flowers. And we have that flower filled in, and we can again see the difference between the colours when they're dry and when they first go down. We can see that there, but that will dry. It's slightly darker, looking like these flowers here. And yeah, I was thinking maybe bringing in the blues for these tree branches. I don't want to use the same kind of blue that we used for these flowers, because that would look too much the same as the flowers, I think. That is interesting, because the leaves are not really separate from the branch. The leaves kind of grow out from the branch. So we're going to have to blend the green into the blue if we do go along that route. Or maybe we could have this part here green coming down to blue as it goes around the leopard there. Now that might be interesting. And then we could bring in that darker blue. Oh, that's a thought. That is a thought. Okay, we can go with that, because we could have the kind of green coming from there. We could bring in that. We could bring in the pastel blue, and I'll maybe find a shade that's in between the pastel blue and this frost blue here. We'll try B050. That is robin's egg blue. So we'll see what we can make happen with these. We don't want the pale blue to be blending too much into our leopard, so going a little shade darker maybe might be the way to go with that. This one is the robin's egg blue. Oh, and while that dries, we might try bringing in some lavender here to cover up the blue through we had with the orange there. A little bit of white gel pen, I think, is needed here. Maybe a few little sparkly dots. Yeah, that's fun. I think we can live with that. And if we have that blending up into more of a green as we come up here, I think that will work quite well. So let's pick out a couple of fairly bright greens. And what I might do is try and find some lighter greens for these leaves here. Still pretty bright colours, because we are going for that Lisa Frank look. So we're going to go for some quite bright greens here to blend into the blue we've got around our leopard's face there. And then for these ones here, we're going to bring in some darker but still fairly bright greens, I think. All right, so my kind of lightest bright greens, with the one I picked out for his eyes, if you can see, yeah, get that on camera, the colour I picked out for his eyes, that is one of the lightest ones, and I'm going to be shading that with GY4, which is yellow-green. His eye colour is GY7 sugarcane, and I'm hoping to be able to blend those into this robin egg blue. So we'll start with some of this robin egg blue on the plant, I think. We're going to want that blending into the shades of green. So this is which one is this? Yellow green. Especially want that to be coming in on the leaves. Something like that. And then we can come in with the sugarcane as a lighter green for this edge that's kind of flipped over. They're not looking quite as different as I would like them to be. Maybe they will dry a little bit darker. We could even bring in a darker green again. See how this works. This one is GY5, the Absinthe. That's a bit better. That's closer to what I was envisioning there. This is the darker pastel blue, PB7. shading there. This is GY5, the Absinthe, coming in first with that one. Going down into GY4, the yellow green. Going over that bluey shaded there to have a bluer green shade with a bit of luck. And this green here is lightening a lot more as it's drying, so I'm a lot more happy with how that's looking now, I think. And we'll bring that lighter green in now. This is the sugarcane green, which, yeah, when you first lay it down, it doesn't look too different from that yellow green very much, but once it dries, then we do get what we are after. Which is another reason it's good to fill out a swatch card, because you do know what your colours actually dry to look like, rather than when they do first lay down. I'm not holding back with the white highlights on this one, especially in places where my colours have gone over the lines a little bit, because Lisa Frank is fairly sparkly with lots of white highlights anyway. We do have this Absinthe to be doing a little bit of shading with. I don't think we're going to be needing to come in with much pencil shading at all, if any, to be honest. I'm quite liking the way this is looking at the moment. I might prove myself to be a fibber later on when I decide to come in with pencils, but for now, I'm pretty happy with how this is going, considering I was thinking this one would take a heck of a long time to be colouring, as I was going to be going with my water-based markers and my pencils. But bringing in the alcohol markers has definitely sped up this process a little bit, I think. It's going a lot faster than I did originally envision, which is always a good thing. I'm not the most patient of people, so yeah, that's always a good thing. Okay, so with the yellow green, we'll pop a bit of colour on these leaves here. Filled that in with the lightest green, and then coming in with the Absinthe for a little bit of our shading. Yeah, I'm really happy with how all those bright colours are going. And I'm thinking of doing the background quite a dark colour to try and help all these colours kind of pop out. I don't really want to go for black because we have the black butterflies, and I don't really want to go too dark, because then the black of the butterflies will be blending into the background. I'm thinking at the moment a dark purple maybe. I'm not entirely sure how dark my darkest purple is, whether that would actually work. Maybe this kind of aubergine or the pansy colour, those are fairly dark. Or a dark blue, and I think my darkest blue is probably on the way out by now. The Prussian blue is probably on its way out by now, and I don't think that would quite work. I think we need a purple to be picking out the yellow and making these butterflies and our leopard pop out there. But it's something that I'm still kind of thinking about at the moment as we're going along. So for these leaves, all the rest of these leaves down here all seem to be pretty much the same. So I'm going to pick out some darker greens that are still fairly bright. Let's try these two. This is GY3, which is bud green, and GY2, which is grass green, as a little bit of shading on there. See how well this works. As I said, it's kind of a complicated picture, so it's a little bit hard to be picking out different pieces. This is leaf here from what I can tell. I think there we have a little flower bud that wasn't quite coloured. We have some leaves going behind this. Wisp of smoke or steam. Again, kind of hard to pick out what is what here. That looks to be the wisp of smoke, yep. And we do have the little flower bud here. We'll just fill that one in there. And these leaves, they'll be shaded with the G2, which is grass green, which hopefully will dry to be slightly darker and give us a nice shading on our leaves. we could even do, see if this will work, is find our TouchCool marker with the yellow and put that in over the top on the edges of these leaves and see if that makes a little bit of a difference once everything's dried. I want everything to be nice and bright and maybe even slightly crazy. I know Lisa Frank does like to do black backgrounds, but I'm thinking because we have the butterflies, which already have quite a bit of black on there, we don't really want to be bringing that in for the background because our butterflies will be getting a little bit lost. So let's see if we can pick out the rest of these leaves before we move on to think about the background. And then finishing off these butterflies that I had already started with. And those I'll go back in and finish off with the water-based markers and the pencils as I originally started them. I was wondering how I could make these butterflies actually work with the leopard, but yeah, I think that is working out pretty well with that quite bright orange that we do have on our leopard and the orange of the butterflies. So I think we have a couple more flowers here that we also need to be coloured in our pink colour combination we had going on there. I think we had yellow, didn't we? That is green. Oh no! We had yellow, we didn't have green. We're doing green. A little bit of yellow, then we have the light pink. Then we have the dark pink. And as this is quite a complicated picture, we will be finding little bits like this probably most of the way through as we try and get everything completed and working. Something along those lines I think we had going on. And we brought in the yellow. Again, I've picked up the green. We brought in the yellow, not the green. It shouldn't be too noticeable once everything is all done though, because the whole picture is fairly detailed with lots going on. So we'll just bring in the grass green and shade these leaves a little bit. Okay, that's working quite well, I think, so I'll go ahead and finish off all these leaves in this bottom corner. Right, there's all our leaves done. And while I'm still pondering on my background colour of choice there, I'm going to pop in some white highlights. But yeah, I am pretty pleased with how it's looking so far. I think we're getting that the 80s vibe that we were going for. We're really going to have to take the plunge in a minute and choose a background colour. Maybe a blend, a colour blend we could have going on. Okay, so I think I'm going to try something here with the background. I'm not entirely sure that I'll be able to make this work, but what I'm hoping to be able to do is blend from this darker blue through to a mid-tone blue and into this light violet, or a dark violet light it's called, into this kind of a light purple. I think I might be able to make that work. Then I can come in with my sparkles and hopefully some star stickers. I might be able to put a few of those in, as that's quite a motif that Lisa Frank likes to use quite a lot, is the stars. I don't really want to be splitting it into thirds, but maybe my darker blue could come up to about here, I'm thinking. And then the blue, where this purple on the leopard, we'll have the dark blue in the background there. And where these light blue flowers here at the top are coming in, we'll maybe move the purple into the background there. So I'm not entirely sure, as I said, how this will work, but we're going to go ahead. We're just going to jump in. After I've coloured some leaves that I've just noticed that I forgot these leaves down the bottom here, I'll colour those in and then we will jump into doing the background. Okay, leaves are done. So I'm going to start off in this bottom corner, maybe work this side of the page and see how well we can get on there. Try and match up the rest of it. But this side of the page is quite well closed off with lots of little areas, so we're not going to get a lot of streaking if we're lucky. I'm going to start just by filling in most of these little areas with the darker blue. This is cobalt blue. which is PB3. Okay, so I've filled in about as far as I'm going to go with this dark blue here, just in this little section on this side of the page. I'm going to try blending in to the second shade of blue that I have picked out. This one here. We don't want a really harsh line, so I'm hoping that was still damp enough to give us a nice blend there. Move into this second shade of blue. I'm not sure if the purple that I've picked out will actually blend nicely into this blue, but that's something we'll have to wait and see. Maybe we'll have to bring in another shade of purple as a kind of go-between, but hopefully we've got something nice happening here. And the darker blue will probably come in here maybe. Something like that maybe. I'm not entirely sure if this darker blue is going to end up drying to be a lot too different from that mid-tone. It should do compared to my swatch sheet, but these markers are some I've had for at least a few years now, and the swatch sheet will maybe have faded, so we will see what that does end up looking like. It is looking very slightly lighter. We might have a little bit of that darker blue in there. Blend that in. I'm going to try to keep to that same level across the picture where I do have the lighter blue kind of blending in. But we don't want any harsh lines really. Anything above this kind of line here where I did mark off with my lighter shade of blue is coming in. Hopefully I was on camera, but I will just reiterate in case I wasn't. I brought the darker blue up to about here. Shall we say up to about here, just to give a little bit of colouring to show what I was actually doing. Up to about there. And that one is the cobalt blue. And then I was bringing in the brilliant blue. And blending along that kind of edge. Hoping that this one is a slightly different colour. Or enough of a different colour to dry and give us a bit of a blend going on in that background. We are getting slight bleeding over the edges in some places. Onto this part of the butterfly, that shouldn't really matter too much because that will be in black anyways. But anything extra, anything that isn't going to be coloured in black, I'm going to try and bring in the white gel pen, maybe tidy up a few edges. Okay, let's just test out whether this blue will blend into our purple. So I'm going to bring in this lighter blue. This one is the brilliant blue, up to about the area where I want to have my purple blending in. And we will see what we can make happen here. So about this area here, I think I'm going to try and bring in the purple. Hopefully this is a shade that will blend in. Nope. No, that's slightly too light. Maybe we'll need to come in with that pastel violet. No, also too light. Okay, let's try the lavender. We might actually be going a little bit too dark here. This is the same dark purple we did actually use in the middle of the flowers, but we might be able to blend that in. Hopefully blend that in to our blue. We'll see how that dries. A little bit of an experiment. I'm not the world's best at blending with markers. I don't consider myself an expert at all. But I thought maybe it might be quite nice, as in a lot of Lisa Fank's pictures she does use a little bit of a blend going on in the background. So we'll maybe try and bring it in to about this level here. Don't want any harsh lines, so I'm going to have to be going over with a couple of layers, I think, in the areas where we are bringing in the purple there. I think we might get away with that. The original purple was a lot too light, I think. Definitely, yeah, definitely the wrong choice. Okay, it's maybe not a perfectly smooth blend, but I think that's good enough for our purposes here. We've got that blue blending into the darker shade of lavender rather than the lighter one, but it is working pretty much okay with those flowers up the top, even though it is the same purple that we used inside those flowers. I think maybe having the blue between the background and the actual flower is helping with that, because we have the purple blending into the blue, and then we have the purple just by itself on the outside there, blending into a darker blue. So I think it's all good. I think we're working as well as we can be here. Blending with markers is something that I am working on. I'm trying to get a bit better at it. It's still not something I would consider myself an expert on, but it's something I do like to play around with, and you can get some quite nice effects going on with it, I think. We might end up with a little bit of streaking there, as I was working a little bit of a weird way there to get my blend going on, but we can cover those with some star stickers if I'm still thinking of putting those in, or maybe some pencil shading if not. So there we are, trying to get the whole blend onto the camera there. Hopefully that's most of it. I'm quite happy with the way that's working. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in for the rest of our background, and then maybe catch up with you after that, figure out how we're going to do these kind of smoke swirls we have going on in the background, and then finish off our butterflies. So catch you in a moment. Okay, all the background is filled in there. I've tried to make that gradient kind of the same level all the way across without giving any of those harsh lines that we didn't really want. And for these kind of wispy bits across the back, I sort of had the idea of maybe making them look like Lisa Frank's kind of bubbles that she likes to put into her artwork. She does like to use a lot of bubbles, and I'm not entirely sure I'll be able to get this working. So again, a little bit of an experiment here. I was thinking maybe the way I like to do clouds, and maybe bring that in a little bit here and add in some of this barium yellow along the top of these kind of wispy things in the background. I'm not entirely sure what they are supposed to be. I have no idea. I'm going to be going over the line art with a white gel pen. And I'm going to try and match the colours to what we actually have going on in the background here. So as we have this purple here, I'm going to bring in a lighter purple. This is the Viola, this purple I'm using here to try and reflect the colour that's actually behind it in the background there. And the Viola is V230. And then when we're coming over the blue in the background here, I'm going to bring in the frost blue. Again, I have no idea whether this will actually work. This is just from looking at Lisa Frank kind of style bubbles in her pictures, and trying to work with the kind of method that she used. And this seems to be what she has going on here. And I do want to bring into this bubble here a couple of touches of pink as well. So I'm going to pick out a lighter pink, more of a pastel pink, I think, because we do want these bubbles to be looking a little bit iridescent. So this one is the light hot pink, which is RV030, and I'm just going to bring in a few little touches of that. Trying to get some sort of iridescent effect happening here. I'm not entirely sure if this will work, but I'm going to go ahead and go over the line art with the white gel pen and see what we do actually end up with here. Maybe, hopefully, some sort of bubbly looking wisps in the background there. But yeah, not something that I've planned out or tested out before. This is just a bit of an experiment to see if I can make this work. Get some sort of bubble effect maybe. Would be a little bit easier if we did have kind of circles in the background. I could turn into bubbles, but yeah, the wisps are what we have, so that's what I'm working with. I'm not sure that's working entirely how I wanted it to, but yeah, we definitely have something going on there. So let's try adding in a big old Lisa Frank kind of sparkle here. I think we can make something work here. Yeah, that's fun, even if that's not working exactly as I'm planning that it did. Maybe coming over the top of that butterfly there, maybe. A few more little kind of sparkle dots. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. That is fun. So I think I'll carry on with that for the kind of bubble type things in the background there. More of the blue down for this one as we are over the blue in the background. Some yellow for the top. Maybe a few little touches of pink. And going around with the white gel pen, and I'll carry on that for the rest of these sort of wisps in the background. Once we've done all these, it'll be time to finish filling out the butterflies, and I'll do some of that on camera so that you guys can see how I was doing these butterflies when I first started, when I first picked out this picture. I do love doing my monarch style butterflies, and yeah, that's the first thing I went for when I picked up this picture. Although now I've diverted to the kind of Lisa Frank style, I think maybe rainbow butterflies possibly could have worked better, but the orange ones do work, which is, yeah, that's a bonus. They are fitting in quite nicely, just picking up that orange colour of our leopard type creature in the background. Gave us some big sparkles. Some little sparkle dots. Yeah, this is so much fun. I am really enjoying drawing this today. This one down the bottom here, we do have a little bit of green because once again I picked up the wrong pen. But I think, yeah, we can work with it. That's working. I'll add in some of this light pink. And where these bubbles are going over the flowers here, we're going to bring in more concentrating on the pink there. And we might actually deliberately use the green. There's this light yellow green I did pick up accidentally, I think, over the other side. This time we do want to have the green coming through because we have the leaves in the background there. Yellow. Hopefully that'll work. We don't want the blue coming in here. I'm not sure that's working quite as well as the ones going over the background, but yeah, that is the colours that would be reflected there, I think, so we'll go with that. More sparkles. Lisa Frank is all about the sparkles. And I do want to bring in some of my star stickers as well. So there's all the wisps, kind of bubbly wisps I've done in the background there, all finished. And I thought before I went on and finished off the butterflies kind of off camera a little bit, I'd show you how I was actually doing them. I was colouring the butterflies when I first started with the Ohuhu water-based markers. I did base the inside of the wings with this one, which is called orange, and the other one I was using is fruit pink. Fruit pink is actually a very, very pale kind of peachy orange colour, so I was using the orange and the fruit pink just to colour the inside of the kind of monarch butterfly style wings there. And then I was coming in and shading them with Prismacolor pencils, and I have 3 different colour oranges here. I have the pale vermilion, which is PC912. I have the orange, which is PC918, and I also brought in some of the yellow. This one is called Canary Yellow, PC916. And I was shading the kind of orange bits here with these pencils. This is the darkest orange here, vermilion. And what I was trying to do was keep the top part of the wings the darkest colour. If the wings were flat open, the top of the butterfly here, I was trying to do that in the darkest colours and outline that with the black around the edges. And for the underside of the wings, I was trying to keep the colours paler and go around the outside of the wings with a grey colour. We can see on this butterfly here maybe. I was going around the outside of the wings there with the grey colour and keeping the colours inside fairly light. So that's how I was doing the butterflies, just to make a little bit of a distinction between the tops and the bottom of the wings, and a little bit of variation in colour, so you could see the difference between the two wings rather than being a solid lump of maybe black or orange in the middle there. So I was shading with the vermilion there, coming in with the orange to make that top colour really strong and bright and a lot darker than the underside of the wings. Maybe using the yellow to blend a little bit just to make the colours a lot brighter, and that does fit in well with our Lisa Frank style rainbow we have going on now. And for the underside of the wings, I wasn't using the vermilion so much. I was shading more with the orange and the yellow. So this is the orange, just taking the tops of these little wing segments here. And then the yellow. Trying to leave some of that fruit pink colour kind of showing through, just making these underside of the wings look a lot paler. Something along those lines. So you can definitely see the difference between the top of the wings and the underside. And again with the Ohuhu water-based markers, the edges of the wings I was doing with the black. This one is black 72, and the grey I was using is this one, purple grey 5, that's 105 in the Ohuhu water-based markers. So I'll just show you that quickly. Again on the same butterfly. Oh, and a bit I missed, as always. This bit here, it seems to be where the wing is folding over, so this part of the wing would be the darker orange. I'll just fill that in with the vermilion, just for quickness there. And because that is the inside of the wings, I might as well go on with that first. I was doing that with the black. So this is the fine line edge of the water-based markers, because there's lots of fiddly little bits to be going around with the spots here. So yeah, the inside of the wings I was doing with the black, going around all the little spots. I'm not sure whether I'm still planning to come in and go around the outside of those spots with the white gel pen. At the moment, I don't think there's that much call for it, to be honest, because the white is showing up quite well. And a few little slips of the pen going over the lines isn't going to make so much of a difference, really. I'll just quickly go around these edges and show you how the grey would look, just to show the difference between the two sides of the wings, as I said. And it does make for a little kind of visual break, if you want to put it that way. You're not looking at big swathes of black. You do have the grey to break things up. And I don't think I was sure whether I was going to come back in and add some shading to these, but again I'm thinking it doesn't really need it. I think we're working pretty well as we are at the moment. I might come in and shade these pink flowers if those are on camera. Yeah, I might come in and shade those pink flowers a little bit with maybe a magenta or something to get a little bit more depth on those flowers, because those pinks are not as different as I really want them to be, probably because I was layering them a little bit so the colours blended together. So this is the grey, I think it's called purple grey or something along those lines, and I was just using that to colour the inside edge of the wings. the edge that would be underneath if the butterfly was laying down flat. This would be underneath the wings. So I'm trying to make it look as if take it that the wings are slightly transparent, and then the colour would be a little bit duller on the inside of the wings. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure if that is what monarch butterflies do look like under their wings. I didn't look up any reference. I just went ahead and coloured them the way that I do like to colour butterflies. I love colouring butterflies as the monarch butterflies. It's not very often that I do divert from that and do a different colour. But I think in this instance that the colour orange is working quite well. So we're making that the main colour of the picture. So yeah, I think that is working quite well there. So that is how I was colouring the butterflies. And I will now go ahead and finish off the rest of these butterflies. The body, before I forget, yeah, the body is also black. And the inside of the antennas is a little bit of a kind of oval shape there. That is also black. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and finish off the rest of the butterflies now. There's not very many left to do, so I'm just going to quickly finish those off, and then we'll see about any little finishing touches. And now I've just realised there is a bit of bubbly cloud up here that I've forgotten. So I'll finish that off as well, finish off the butterflies, and then meet up with you again. I think I've gotten the majority of the butterflies there at least. There might be a couple of little teeny ones that I have missed, but I'll colour those as and when I find them. And now what I wanted to do before I went on to sticking on my little star stickers that I still really want to bring in just for fun. That will be going completely over the top, very likely. But I do want to bring those in. But I want to put some shading onto these flowers here, as I think the pinks are looking a little bit muddy there. And I've just grabbed the Prismacolor there. That's a magenta PC930. I'm just going to add a little bit of shading there to try and separate out these petals a little bit. Shading over all the colours, the yellow and the pink, just to separate out these petals, because yeah, these flowers are looking a little bit muddy compared to the others. So I thought I'd bring in a little bit of shading just to separate the petals here. And that is looking a lot better. Yeah, we can see that is looking a lot better just with that simple little tiny bit of shading there. So I'll finish shading off these flowers and then grab my star stickers. Maybe put in a few more little eye highlights. Again, probably going over the top, but I do love the way it's looking with all the sparkles and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm really going for it, really having some fun with this one. I have, while I was colouring the butterflies as well, just been in and filled in his little claws here with the yellow. Just to add a little bit of colour to them and not have them look unfinished. I had forgotten about them, but yeah, let's not think about that. They're done now. I think I might bring in a little bit of this blue as well, just for a little bit of brighter shading, especially where I've got this kind of transition going on here, and there's a bit of a blend. This one is a true blue Prismacolor, that's PC903. Maybe a little bit more of a pop of colour here to show the difference that we do have a lighter blue going on there that is blending into this darker blue at the bottom. Maybe we can soften this transition here as well up into the purple. Just by bringing in a little bit of blue over the top. The good thing with markers is you can always bring in pencils and shade over the top to get rid of any streakiness or anything like that. And to soften your blends like we're doing there. And just to go completely over the top, I'm going to go and find my star stickers. Here we are with our star stickers. I don't know if you guys remember these from my pound shop video. And when I first decided to make this into a Lisa Frank inspired picture, yeah, I knew I wanted to put in some of these stickers. Even though it is going completely over the top, I do know that. I want to put some of these in. I do have some kind of part stickers here as well that we can put in. Put a green one up here maybe. Pale yellow ones. Yeah. I love it. I think it's possibly one of those pictures that you guys will either love or hate. But I have to say that, yeah, I am loving this one. I do love the Lisa Frank kind of style of the 80s. So yeah, this is right up my street, this one. And I do love the way it has turned out. And it was super, super fun to be colouring as well. Let me snip one of those so we can have a part one along the top there. And a waist knot, whatnot. That is the other half of that sticker there. Oh, I'm really in love with this one so far. And and to be completely over the top, just to go for those high notes here, I have found this washi tape and I absolutely love it. It's the kind of metallic style, maybe a little bit iridescent sort of washi tape, and I think it will make a really nice border just to tidy up our lines around the edges for this one. So I'm going to tidy up our border with this kind of purpley blue washi tape, can we see? That's going to work really well to give us a nice border with the neat edges, hopefully. Yeah, I think that's going to work. So I'll go ahead and give us a nice little frame with that there. Okay, I'm going to be calling it a day there, I think. So I'll zoom us out and we'll take a look at the full picture. There we go, that's what we're looking like now we're done, and I have to say I love it. I know it's probably one of those that you either love or hate, but yeah, I really love it because I am a huge fan of Lisa Frank anyways, and that kind of 80s style, and I do love colouring my monarch style butterflies, so that's a bonus. And I have to say this is completely not what I imagined the finished picture looking like. I had no idea it would look like this. I was probably in my head thinking of a more natural colour scheme, but once I'd started seeing all those Lisa Frank inspired colourings on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, that really captured my imagination, and I had to go ahead and do something along these lines. Really happy to have another picture finished in this book as well. I think I might maybe go ahead and add a few more sparkles and stuff like these, especially in this area here where I was working on the butterflies. It might need a couple more little finishing touches like that, but all in all, I think we are done. It was fun to bring in the markers and have things going really quickly compared to how I was picturing how long it would take. I was thinking it would take quite a long while as I was working with my water-based markers and the pencil shading on top there, but bringing in the markers really helped move things along there, I think, and we've ended up with something I'm really happy with, really bright, cheerful and super fun to colour. I really did love colouring this one, I can't stress that enough. It's super fun, and it was amazing to have a chance to use this washi tape as well, because I've loved this one since I bought the set, and I just haven't coloured a picture that would really work with that washi tape until now, and surprisingly it did, and it's framed us off nicely there and covered up all my little messy edges. All in all, a really enjoyable colouring session today, and I was happy to be able to bring you guys along with me. Hopefully you've enjoyed following along and see how I finish this picture off in a Lisa Frank kind of 80s, really rainbow, colourful style. If you did enjoy the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Take care everyone, and I'll see you in future videos. Bye!